Hello, everybody. Welcome to another video of me just trying to get better as a web developer. And in this session, I am studying again. I was originally just studying to just retake the AWS Certified Practitioner, but I have an interview coming up that's related to PHP and stuff like that. So I started creating a couple of more flashcards relating to PHP and Laravel because they're using the framework Laravel. Probably don't need to learn how to do React, but maybe if I have time, I'll get into React again. Because it's funny, I haven't really put too much time into React or doing TypeScript and things of that nature. So I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know, maybe later on if I have time, I'll get into that. But yeah, I wanted to just go over a lot of Laravel questions regarding Laravel, or questions I probably still have to. I think they might ask me about Laravel or about PHP, see if I have strong understanding because I said I have an 8 out of 10 in knowledge of PHP. So I think they're going to try to quiz me on it or ask me just some questions regarding it. Um, so that's where I stand at with that. Um, I did do, I've been leaning heavily on Gemini to try to build up like PHP cards or Laravel cards, and they gave me a couple of questions I could possibly use. But I know the questions that they gave me with Laravel, there's so much more to it, like broadcasting, concurrency. I haven't like used many of these features. Um, I haven't used like localization, anything regarding security and stuff. Well, I've used some things with security and stuff like that, but not a lot. In any case, I'm thinking that they're probably going to quiz me on a lot of these things, and then probably possibly quiz me on like design patterns within PHP or what design patterns are being utilized in Laravel, stuff like that. So, um, they, I guess the AI tool from Google did give me a good amount of cards I could put, and they are actually within here. They gave me about 35 cards. Um, the only other thing I could possibly think about doing is like think of design patterns, memorize design patterns, and ask if they ever ask me what type of design pattern. They might even ask me. They might even ask me about um, system design patterns or system design questions because I know that's a common thing. And obviously, there are probably going to be some data structures and algorithm questions. So I'm trying to really, really put my foot into that. But at this moment, I think I need to just add more possible questions regarding security, digging deeper about context and contracts and events and all this other type of stuff. And so I just have like a fundamental knowledge of it. And if they ever ask me about it, I can at least explain what it is. But let's go into some of the questions that I already copied and I copied from Gemini and I put it into this card deck for Laravel. This is a Laravel one, and it's first asking me what is a service container, or IOC container, IOC container in Laravel. Let's see the answer. I think the service container allows you to uh, create different services. This is a place where you hold or create different services that you can do dependency injection to controllers or maybe routes. Um, that's my first thought. The service container is a powerful tool for managing class dependencies and performing dependency injection. Yeah. Um, it handles instantiating classes and automatically injecting their dependencies via type hints and constructors or methods. hmm So one thing I'm curious about Anki, because I used to just use Quizlet. The only reason why I moved from Quizlet to Anki is the fact that Quizlet's ads are just getting outrageous. I remember trying to use Quizlet some time ago. Um, and man, if you haven't went to Quizlet before, or haven't been to Quizlet a long time ago, there's just there's ads that interfere with your ads or interfere with your study sessions. Opt into browser notifications to receive personalized blah blah blah. No thanks. See, I have no problem with ads like this, but if you, I don't know, I need to click on something. Let me go to my library. I think it's like if you go through 17 different cards, eventually, um, let's use this. I'm gonna just go and try to prove what I'm talking about. But if you go through different cards, let me try to just do flashcards. I think is if you have like 17 or so, I'm just gonna put X for all of them. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. 98% of students are interested with learn. Yeah, they put learn behind. That's another thing I hated about Quizlet. They put learn behind the paywall, but at the same time, there's a service, and if a lot of people use learn, I'm not mad at it. At the end of the day, they need to make money somehow, I guess. But I swear to God, there was a certain point where there was like an ad in the middle of it. I'm gonna go till it hits 45. If I don't see an ad, I don't know. Oh, there goes. See, 30. I don't know how many times I did it. I think I did it maybe 17, at least more than 17 times. And now there's an ad and you can't skip it. And like, that's ridiculous. Anyways, maybe that was big procrastination. This was just big, I don't know, something where I was just procrastinating because I don't want to study. But in any case, as a service container is a powerful tool for managing class dependencies and performing dependency injection. Right. And this is the thing, I have an understanding of it. So I guess I say I'm good. What is service provider in Laravel, and what are its two methods? I don't know the answer to that. Um, ooh, this doesn't look good. Let me see here. It looks fine. Wait, it just doesn't look good here. Service providers are the central place where Laravel applications are bootstraps, registering bindings, event listers. Okay, service providers are a central place to bootstrap bindings, event listers, and routes. Register is used only to bind items to the service. Boot is used to execute logic after all the other service providers have been registered, registering the listeners or view composers. That's interesting. Okay. And the service container, what is the difference between bind, uh, singleton, and scoped? So I think binding is like registering the service, singleton. Hmm. I think the singleton is possibly you adding a service that's going to be global, and scoped is one that's going to be run. I don't know. I don't know the answer. It creates a new instance class every time it's resolved. Resolves the class once and returns the exact instance throughout the entire application lifecycle. Resolves the class once per like request lifecycle. Uh, Application lifecycle. That's interesting. What do they mean by application lifecycle? Now I gotta ask questions. What does Laravel mean? What is an application life cycle? Oh, application life cycle often refers to the application life cycle management is the comprehensive process of managing software from its initial concept through development. Uh, in terms of Laravel, like I get the application life cycle in terms of designing, I guess uh, brainstorming, designing, developing it, testing it for bugs and stuff. But what do they mean by life cycle within the app in itself? Now, Laravel, the term application lifecycle almost refers to the request lifecycle. This is a step-by-step process that turns an incoming HTTP request into an outgoing HTTP. Okay, I get you. Understood. Outgoing. So Revolve returns the exact same message throughout the entire request response lifecycle. Resolve the class once per request lifecycle using persistent servers like Laravel Octane. Now I got to figure out what Laravel Octane is. What is Laravel Octane? I think this is for broadcasting things. Laravel is an open source first party package that dramatically accelerates the performance of Laravel applications by keeping them bootstrapped in memory. Interesting. Under the traditional PHP FPM model, every single incoming HTTP request forces the server to reload all configurations, service providers, and routes from scratch. Laravel Octane eliminates this cold boot. Interesting. So every time there is some type of incoming HTTP request, it has to reload everything. But Octane retains it in memory, so it makes it faster. Interesting. Resolves the class request once per request lifecycle. So this is the thing that's interesting to me. Um, I guess when the application runs, the singleton service, whatever changes that happen within that service, that value will always be stored. Um, or like if you change, I don't know, if there was some type of value you it was that was originally 20, you change it to 24. Um, Regardless of whatever request that's made after, it will always be 24. But with scoped, it's like every HTTP request, that service will default back to whatever the original values were, if there were any values. At least that's what I'm getting. So bind creates a new instance of the class every time it's resolved. Singleton resolves the class once and returns the same exact instance throughout the entire application cycle, which is the request response cycle. Scope resolves the class once per request lifecycle, which is weird. Why don't they just call this request lifecycle? Um, I'm gonna call this hard. What are facades in Laravel? How do they look? How do they work under the hood? Facades. Facades. I think aren't facades related to the models? Facades provide a static-like interface to classes available in the service container. Provide a static-like interface to classes available in the service container. Under the hood, they use call static magic method to dynamically resolve underlying instance from container and call the method on it. Uh, I'm still. It's a static-like interface to classes available in the service container. I gotta look more into that. What are contracts in Laravel? I think contracts, they sound like it has to do with security, but it might not be. Let me see. Contracts are sets of interfaces defined by the framework that declare core services. I see, that declare core services. So not services that you made up. Core services are already in Laravel. Are a set of. Let me go back to. Uh, they allow you to build components that depend on decoupled abstractions rather than concrete Laravel classes. They allow you to build components depend on that depend on decoupled abstractions. Okay, I know I saw contracts somewhere. Let me see this. Overall contracts are a set of interfaces that define core services provide the framework. For example, queue contract defines methods needed for queuing jobs, while mailer contracts define methods needed for sending email. Each contract has corresponding implementation provided by the framework. For example, Laravel provides a queue implementation with a variety of drivers and a mailer implementation that's powered by Symfony Mailer. All of the contracts live in their own GitHub repository. This provides a quick reference for all available contracts. Laravel facades and helper functions provide a simple way of utilizing Laravel services without needing to type hint and resolve contracts out of the. Okay, yeah, now I remember. It's like with facades, not only they're like services um, that you just can call. Oh yeah, they're like services that you can call like you somewhat like a utility functions, or there's some utility functions that are within these type of classes like string classes. I remember there being something like that. Let me see. I know that if they're talking about facades, it should be in here. Eloquent or no. Um in any case, in most cases, each facade has an equivalent contract, unlike facades which them do not require you to require them in your class constructor. Contracts allow you to define explicit dependencies for your classes. Some developers prefer to explicitly define their dependencies in this way and therefore prefer to use contracts, while other developers enjoy the convenience of facades. In general, most applications use facades without issue during development. The decision to use contracts or facades will come down to personal taste and the taste of your development team. Both contracts and facades can be used to create robust, well-tested Laravel applications. Contracts and facades are not mutually exclusive. Some parts of your application may use facades, while others depend on contracts. As long as you are keeping your class responsibilities focused, you will notice very practical differences between using contracts and facades. In general, most applications can use facades without the issue during development. If you're building a patch that integrates with multiple PHP frameworks, you may wish to use Illuminate Contracts package to define your integration with Laravel services. Let me just see how they. So it seems as though I say it's a listener, so this must be a event listener. Cache order information, contract factory, protected factory, Redis. So this is. Let's take a look at this event listener. And when this event listener is resolved, the service container will read the type hints on the constructor of the class and inject the appropriate value. To learn more about registering things in the service container, check out this documentation. This table is a quick reference to all of the contracts and their equivalent facades. Interesting. Wait a second here. They use auth guard, password broker factory. Yeah, interesting. Mm, 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 mm. So now you can use gate, you can use auth. So when you ask to use one of the services, you can initially stuff it into the constructor. Let me ask. I'm sorry, I gotta ask because I'm still trying to get the difference between a facade and a contract. I can't believe I can't find facades here. Maybe it's an architectural. Okay, facades. Let's see examples of code that interacts with Laravel features. Facades static interface. Yeah, like this. It's a class where you can just call methods, whether it be routes or controllers. Uh-huh. Static interface to classes. And when I hear interface, I'm thinking about interfaces, but it's not an interface. Like when they mean interface, they mean, I guess it just means a class that you can interact with without actually instantiating it. Laravel shits with many facades, right? It's just status classes that you can use to interact, utilize. Well, I see the word utilize. All you have to do is just include them within the code, and then you can include them within many of these routes or maybe even controllers. Yeah, yeah. I now I remember what facades are. In addition to facades, okay, in addition to facades, Laravel includes a variety of helper functions which can perform common tasks like generating views, firing events, dispatching jobs, and sending HTTP requests. Many of these helper functions perform the same function as the corresponding facade. Yeah, I liked helper functions like just doing this as opposed to just do like a view. Yeah. Yeah, let me just remember how facades work. And I think they just get registered in the was it the service container or the service provider? Facade is a class that provides access to objects in a container from the container. So they think they mean service container. The machinery that makes this work is the facade class. Therefore, facades and any custom facades you create will extend. Uh-huh. The facade base class makes use of the call static method to defer calls from your facade to an object resolved from the container. In the example below, call is made from Laravel cache system. Okay. I thought they were going to show you how to. Okay, this is get facade accessor return cache. You see, there's no static method get. Instead, the cache facade extends the base facade class and defines a method get facade accessor. This method's job is to return the name of a service container binding when a user references it. Any static method on the cache facade. Laravel resolves the cache binding from the service container and runs a requested, in this case, get against the object. Interesting. Contracts are interfaces defined by the framework declared core services that allow you to build components depend on decoupled abstractions rather than concrete Laravel classes. I'll just put this hard. And what is middleware in Laravel? Where does it sit in the request lifecycle? Huh, that's interesting. I'm assuming it's gonna fit before it hits the controller, or maybe even the route. I don't know what the answer. Middleware acts as HTTP request to filter wrapped request filter wrapped around your application routes. Yeah, it has to happen before the routes, and then expects handles incoming requests before they reach the controller, verifying authentication, checking CSRF, or modifies outgoing responses before they reach the browser. So yeah, there are. It's a hmm, it's a filtered. It's a filter uh, that checks through certain, I don't know, it's a filter that checks through certain functions to verify certain things before it reaches the controller. It's a HTTP request filter um, that is applied to your routes and verifies or checks certain things before it reaches the controller. HTTP request filter, or we just can call it a request filter. Okay, I understand what a middleware is, but I didn't know where application routes. I get you. I think I already got this. I'm gonna say I'm good. I already knew what it is. What are two main methods? What was it? The service provider. What was the service Laravel? What are these two main methods? I think it was like boot and register, and it's supposed to register many different things, bindings, event listers, routes to bind items to the service container. Okay, service provider is supposed to bind items to the service container. The service container allows you to do dependency injections through many different classes. All you have to do is type hinted, and you will be able to use that service. And the boot executes the logic after all the service providers have been registered. Okay. I'm going to eventually remember all this. What- In the service container, what is the difference between bind, singleton, and scope? So bind, I think, instantiates the class once. Singleton instantiates the class once, and that class instance will be used throughout the entire request lifecycle. And the scoped method is going to be instantiated per request lifecycle or something like that. Creates a new instance of the class every time it's resolved. Creates a new instance of the class every time it's resolved. A class resolves a class and returns the exact same instance throughout the entire request lifecycle. And the scope resolves it once per request lifecycle. Let's keep it going. Facades, what are facades and how do they work on the hood? So they're static binding, what's it called? Static binding interfaces that allow you to utilize some of the methods. Static like interfaces. Oh, all right. It's been about 30 minutes. Yeah, I got to keep looking through these flashcards to refresh my memory of the different features that Laravel or PHP has. So if they ever ask me these questions, I can just rattle them off or say it in a way where it's not like I have to think really hard about that. In any case, I'm in there right here.